Hello, everyone. Welcome to another COVID-19 daily call. My name is Sree Sreenivasan. I'm the Marshall Loeb Visiting Professor of Digital Innovation at Stony Brook School of Journalism in Stony Brook, Long Island. And I'm a digital and social media consultant in New York. I'm hunkered down in Manhattan, and this is episode 8, where we're going to talk about travel and events. And we have several terrific people who are going to help us navigate this very complicated issue. Almost no other topic is as controversial as what to do about travel at this moment, apart from the testing stuff, of course. Every day we use this platform to have an open conversation, to have people from around the world join us. So if you're on Facebook right now, post a comment, we'll see it, we'll read it out loud. Please tell us where you're watching from. Please tag your friends. Please hit share on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. We're live also on LinkedIn. And if you have any feedback for me, you have my email address, sree@sree.net. And my Twitter handle is @Sree. And my Instagram is SreeNet. So without further ado, let me introduce you to two of our guests today. A third guest is going to be joining us as soon as she can. Liz King, who is an events consultant, will be joining us. But first, let me bring on my good friends, Rafat Ali and Greg Galant. Hi, gents.
Hey, Sree, how are you?
Hey, great to be here.
Thank you for being here. And I see we all have the same hairstyle. And
same barber.
Yeah, same barber. Actually, I asked on social yesterday, what is one thing you wished you had done before the lockdown? And I wish I had gone to the barber or gone and given him like $50 and said, this is for future haircuts. I just feel bad for him and so many other small businesses that are in deep, deep trouble at the moment. So let me get to both of you and tell people who you are. Rafat Ali is the founder of Skift, the most important website in the travel business of travel category. And he wrote a very important piece about how travel has changed and is changing. And he'll tell us more about that. And Greg is the co-founder of Muck Rack and Shorty Awards. And he and I would have been hosting today Social Media Weekend at his office in beautiful offices in downtown in Soho. It would have been a big party ahead of tomorrow's Social Media Weekend celebration and classes and all of that we were going to do. And unfortunately, obviously, we're not able to do that. We've turned it all into an online conference all day tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern to 6:15 Eastern. So if you have family or friends or you are interested, please join us. Just go to smwknd.com, smwknd.com, or go to the top of my Twitter page. This is posted there, and you'll be able to get information about the conference. And if you cannot afford a ticket, please let me know. Please write to me, and I will give you a volunteer opportunity, something to help you attend this conference. We don't want money to be the reason you can't attend. So we want to thank Greg and Muck Rack for sponsoring us, for making the low prices that we already have possible. So let's get to Rafat. And Rafat, tell us what's happening right now with your company first and yourself. Where are you? Are you safe? Tell us.
Yeah, well, thank you, Sree, for having me on. So we are obviously working from our homes. Our company Skift is about 60 people, different parts of the world. So we did work from home about, I would say, 10 days ago, or maybe shorter at this point, but time seems to be lost on a lot of people because we're working from home. And our company is in the travel industry. Travel industry is the most affected industry in this world at this point. I think people are seeing for the first time, even more so than 9/11 and the financial crisis, how consequential travel industry is to the world. And they're finding out by, the whole industry stopping. I think that's really what the one silver lining, if there is that the world is seeing how important the industry is to the world. And so from that perspective, the industry has been hugely hit. There's been analogies of this as 9/11 plus financial crisis plus more combined in terms of the effect on the industry. I mean, it went from 100 to 0 in a matter of weeks. days. And so obviously that's affected our business in a big way as well. And we're hurting as much as anybody else in this industry. And we're working through it. It's going to be tough for the team and our company. It is already tough for the team and company, but our team is doing the best work of their lives they've ever done. If there is the one moment where we break out of just the industry to show the world how important the work that our people are doing is to the industry and for the world to understand what's happening in the industry, now's that time. So, those are the things that give me hope for the future. I mean, it's our people really that give me hope for the future. That's I'm probably getting too existential here, but really that's the state the world is in today.
Thank you, Rafat. And for those who aren't subscribing to his absolutely critical newsletter at Skift, they have multiple, but get the main one. Please read that. Rafat has been a leader in understanding digital media for decade plus now. He founded Paid Content, which was at one time one of the most important ways to understand the future of journalism. And now he's reinvented understanding the future of travel. And now you are experiencing it firsthand, everything that's going on. I just want to welcome onto the show Liz Caruso, who as an events consultant and a terrific expert on all things around events. Thank you, Liz, for coming. We're just going to chat with Rafat for a few more minutes, and I'd love both you and Greg to ask him a question in a couple of minutes. We have questions coming in from all over. I'm trying to keep up with all the different platforms. I just want to read, Rafat, this beautiful comment from Linda Lawrence, who says, "Hi from Long Island. Huzzah for social media during these challenging and potentially isolating times. Tell us how you are keeping your team together at this moment."
Yeah, so it's I think what everybody's doing. Zoom has become the center of our company, and then sorry, I'm getting text. This is what happens.
Of course, no, I understand. That's all
happens live in this kind of thing. So speaking of text, obviously text with our team, it's Slack, it's Zoom, it's Google Hangout, which is just I think easier to do through the calendars. We use Google software throughout our company. So we've been in touch with that. And, I think one of the things we're doing is any communication we do through video mostly, one-to-one, or even in Teams. I think video is important just to see each other's faces and obviously, starting with the personal. I think that is the biggest thing we're doing, which is how are you doing? How are your families doing? Focus on versus work first. And I think that is the most important, thing that I think we are doing. And I'm sure a lot of others are doing as well. That's advice that I get from everybody as well.
And what's different about you than many of my friends is they are all used to working, almost exclusively inside large organizations, not in nimble teams, not a lot of work from home. And you've had, much more experience with that. Now let's talk about this in particular. Of us, including 60% of capacity. I saw a headline about Cathay Pacific cutting 96%. I didn't even understand what was the 4% that they were going to do. So walk us through some of the stats, and what's going on in the travel business.
Yeah, so among all the sectors in travel, airlines have been the most affected. The airline business is all about cash flow. How much cash do you have in the bank today? And because of all this giant sucking noise that has come out of the industry, it's all the tickets that have been canceled, which means a lot of money being refunded or postponed, etc. A lot of cancellations, a lot of bookings not made, obviously, because people have stopped traveling. It has had a huge effect on the airline sector. And there's some estimates that half of the world's airlines will fail in the next 3 months if nothing changes or if there's no bailout from the governments. Obviously, they don't want to use the word bailout, but it is definitely extremely, extremely dire. Obviously, all of the international flights pretty much are stopped globally. There's some charts that if you see online on how much pollution over China, for instance, has decreased as a result of not just air, but also just business activity stopping, which is an incredible sight to see. So many of the airlines were troubled to begin with. It's not to say that this is the only reason why some of the, whether it's Norwegian Air or some of the European airlines, particularly U.S. airlines in general, were very, very healthy before this. Obviously, they had billions of dollars of profits before this, and so for airline like Norwegian, which was in danger of shutting down sometime this year, this is obviously just a massive blow. So there's some news that the Norwegian government is going to bail them out. I'm personally a huge fan of the airline, so I do hope that they survive. So airline industry, it's been really, really massive.
And what does that mean for the rest of the travel sector? Hotels, I know you posted something from Marriott. You said it was a good message from the CEO, I believe.
Yes, yesterday, Arnie, it was a great message. I mean, he's a very forward-looking leader in this industry. Obviously, hospitality has also been hugely affected. There are different components to hospitality: the owners of the hotels, the operators of the hotels, and then the brands themselves. The people that are owners that depend on the cash coming in from people staying at their hotels, they're probably the most affected. The brands like Marriott and others get fees from these owners to be able to use their flags. These are called flags, so the brands are called flags. So they get affected as well, hugely. The biggest of big, like Marriott, are laying off. Most of them are doing furloughing, which is essentially putting people without pay for X number of weeks or months. And so that is very common across all of travel industry. You'll see that happening, with an idea that when the demand comes back, they can quickly bring them back. And so hospitality has been hugely affected. Short-term rentals, Airbnb and others, it's the mom and pop or the smaller businesses that are very much part of the short-term rental business, vacation rentals. They've been hugely affected. It just has not been highlighted as much because these are small businesses. And I think, travel is made out of small businesses. There's, yes, these big companies that we know, but a lot of them are small tour operators, small, tour guides. Imagine the tour guides at Taj out of business completely for weeks, who knows how long. So it's the small business that hurts the most. And, my hope is that, all these rescue packages that are coming for big businesses also percolate down to small businesses as well, or individual entrepreneurs, or people who are single, freelancers, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sure Greg has some thoughts on that from the world that he's in. I think that's the biggest thing that I am hopeful about, which is I saw that there's a bill that's being proposed. Anybody below 500 employees, there's going to be some sort of a relief for them from the U.S. government. So I'm hopeful about that. It's just that it needs to move quickly because all these changes are happening now. So I think that's the speed is of essence here.
Can I ask you a quick question about the lessons from the last bailout of the auto industry and the Wall Street from 2008? Is there anything, if you could direct how these bailouts are done, is there anything you would do differently?
Yeah, I think that there, in fact, already a movement against using these bailouts for stock buybacks for these companies, which is what a lot of the companies back then did. So invested directly into the companies and workers. So it will come with stipulations of how do you help your employees the most, and then the consumers affected, as a sort of a secondary thing. And I think almost guaranteed that's what's going to happen, which is going to be different than the money that was given, for instance, to the banks in the past as well.
Yeah, so you can see on screen, I've just shown people the website of Skift, SKIFT. Please check it out. Tell us about your direct plea to your audience, where you have asked for help to support Skift in these crucial times, as you say.
Yeah, so the backstory is that we were about to launch a subscription paywall, very much like New York Times. You read 5 articles, you pay beyond that, so the casual users could still read it. And we've been building the tech for the last 6 months. It was ready to go, and we just quickly it doesn't seem the right time to launch that, to not restrict our important journalism for the industry at this stage. And so it seemed like if people were asking, how do we support Skift in this time? Your work is extremely important to us. I mean, this is all, we can look at social media about people talking about our work. And so we said, let's turn this on. Obviously, it helps our business finances a little bit. It's not going to save anything, but at least one, it brings the community into our coverage as well. And it gives us a lot of lessons on when we do eventually launch subscriptions, what are the lessons we're learning now? We're borrowing from companies like Guardian. Who knows, this may become a long-term thing. I don't know. But for Guardian, it has become that.
Yeah.
And it'll be an interesting, if we are able to do it, we're probably the first example in the B2B world, I would imagine, that this is working. Also Stat News, which covers the health industry that's owned by the Boston Globe, they started this last week. So we sort of stole the idea from them. So it's only day one for us. This is day two. But the response has just been phenomenal from just the love that's coming from the community.
What do people, is there a suggested price? What do you,
so we're doing a suggested one-time donations. They can do whatever they want, or a small recurring donation. Actually, we're not calling it donation. We're calling it, because we're not a nonprofit. It supports Skift in these crucial times to do the independent journalism that we're doing. So, anywhere from $20 to $50. 50 seems to be the number that people are gravitating towards, and that's fine. We really appreciate anything that helps do the work that we're doing.
Great, thank you. Greg and Liz, any questions for Rafat?
How's your transition to remote been, team-wise?
Yeah, I mean, it's been, look, my first company, Paid Content, which you know very well, Greg, was a completely virtual thing. I started in my apartment. That's all the, this is 2002, so pre-Skype, pre-anything. So for me, it's basically using a long lost muscle again, and trying to use that again. For the rest of the team, I think they're my sense is they're coping well from that, because we already have work from home days in our company to begin with for the whole team. In fact, we rolled it out, I would say, 4 or 5 months ago. And so people like 4 days a week work from home. Sorry, 4 days a month work from home. So people were beginning to get used to that. So I think that is helping as well. Obviously, I know for you, you are virtual to begin with completely as a company, right?
Pretty much. We call it remote first. So we have an office in New York, half our team's in New York, half the team's distributed across the world and works from home. But even our New York team could work from home whenever they wanted, and average day, half the people would.
And I'm guessing, Sree, we're going to talk a little bit about events and how they're affected. Obviously, for Greg, for us, they've been hugely affected. And obviously, Liz, I mean, this is your world as well. We not only do events, we own something called EventMB, which is the largest resource for meeting planners in the world. This is a media resource that we bought last year. And the events industry, even before, let's say, the general travel industry, technically events industry is part of the travel industry, has been hugely hit. We had to move 2 of our events into the second half of the year. And obviously, Sree, your event went online as well. So it's just been, for the event planners, it's a really, really tough time.
Go ahead, Liz.
Who do you see? I mean, obviously we're in changing times. Information is changing by the second, and travel bans and things are affecting obviously many industries. Is there anyone that you're seeing who you think is just doing an amazing job of messaging, nailing it, and doing a really good job of kind of keeping their consumers informed?
I think consumers informed versus the stakeholders versus their employees, etc.
Right.
I think everybody had to scramble. All the airlines had to scramble. Initially, they were not, as you know, were not giving refunds, and then they were forced to give refunds after a certain period of time. I forget what was the first airline that started doing it. I think it was some Asian airlines, and then obviously US airlines were the one that started saying either you can cancel or you can get a future voucher for future travel. If I'm not mistaken, American was the first one, American Airlines, but I could be mistaken. Obviously, the world, there's so much information coming at us from that perspective.
Who did it early too? I don't know who was first.
And then, yesterday's message from Arnie to his employees, I thought was very, very moving. And Arnie Sorensen is the CEO of Marriott. If you go to Marriott International's, I think, Twitter feed, you'll see it right there. It's 5 minutes. I would highly recommend watching. It's a great message, and sort of the right type of message you would want to give to your employees that then gets amplified in the larger world to show that they care. So I would say everybody's stumbling at it. There's no right way at this point to do it.
Sure.
Hi, folks. We'd love your comments to come in on Twitter, on Facebook, LinkedIn. We're keeping track of all of that. Here's a comment from Taiwan. And Peggy says, hello. Rafat, how do you see Asia? You see, in terms of the healthcare situation, it seems to be that they, at least in parts of China, they're ahead of us by a couple of months and are starting to see, if we trust the information, that there's a cycle there, something's happening. Do you see that in travel yet, or is it still bad? And about that Pacific thing?
China is definitely rebounding, early signs. Even Arnie from Marriott said yesterday the big hope that we can take out of it is what's happening in China. Early demand is coming back, both in airlines as well as hotels. People are, having been cooped up for 2 months, maybe more, in their houses, really want to go out, even if they don't want to go out far. So hopefully the local businesses benefit as a result more, which is fine. They're the ones that obviously got hurt the most. And so we're beginning to see some early signs in China, not yet in other parts of Asia, because they're still just dealing with that. India, obviously, that we know very well, is a sitting time bomb, unfortunately, in terms of what could happen in terms of COVID cases there. It's very early. So I think China is what everybody's watching. Then obviously we're watching the rebound if it happens. I saw Singapore today. There's some news about Singapore closing their borders again because they're worried that they will have a rebound of people that are coming back in. So certainly that is a big concern.
Thank you. Let's just go to Liz. And Liz, if you can talk a little bit about the events business and tell folks a little bit about your background. I used to call you the queen of events, and used to run events about events, right? The event planning industry, where your clients are your clients. Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So I think similar to many other industries, we are going through quite a transition. My world that I mostly live in is independent event planners like myself. So I'm based in New York City. I do primarily conferences. I work with a lot of thought leaders and brands, and that is the world I am most aware of. And at this point, I mean, every organization is going through some serious change. Obviously, we know that it's been recommended that no more than 10 people gather anywhere. I know when this kind of first broke out and the word started coming around, a lot of the events industry associations kind of came together and made a joint statement that we should continue meeting, that, this was happening, and the information was basically making it seem, or I guess the interpretation was, in some places we should not be meeting, but for the most part, life should go on as normal. So I remember when South by Southwest got canceled, there was just a lot of rumors in the industry about how, the city was making decisions that affected that event, and it wasn't a great decision because there wasn't even a lot of cases in Austin, and that has rapidly changed. I think our industry has changed dramatically, even just in the last 1 week or so. And now we went from people wanting to push events a few weeks to now a few months. And now people are really concerned about whether they should even be hosting events this year. I had a call with a few event planners this morning who said, clients are now calling and wanting to look at November, December contracts. So, this impacts our industry, not only on the planning side, but of course, the travel related piece, the hotels. there's so many people in our industry who rely on hourly work, and that has evaporated. And so I think there's going to have to be some major aid for our industry as a whole. I feel blessed where I sit as an independent planner. We happen to get lucky that we don't have an event in the next 6 to 8 weeks. It still will impact the future, but this is something that's really impacting our industry big time.
Folks, we have a tweet in here from Guangzhou. Alejandro says that it's still too early. Any traveler will have to comply with the 14-day quarantine. And Peggy says Taiwan has closed borders to all foreigners since this week. So this is going on. Meanwhile, on LinkedIn, Rafat, Tim Datta says, congrats on all the hard work of you and your team. And he has 2 questions. One was about the bailouts in the airline business that you've already answered. And the second was the total opposite spectrum. Do you see airlines extending the timing of loyalty programs, or will customers lose their mileage and membership status, et cetera?
Yeah. Hey, Tim. I know Tim.
Great guy.
You're asking the worst person, because I'm part of no loyalty programs and have zero sense of loyalty programs in general. No, I have a sense of loyalty. I don't have a sense of loyalty programs. But I do know that we've written about people extending the companies extending the statuses so that people don't lose statuses. I think that if they're not doing it now, they'll be forced to do it later. I think that's the good news. It's too much to lose for them to not to. It's too much for these airlines and hotels to lose. The people who spend the most, they're going to cut them off. I don't think that's going to happen. So I'm not the expert at loyalty, but I do know that if you look at some of our coverage on Skift, you will find something on airlines. If you look at sites like the Points Guy, etc., you'll find something there as well.
So just to understand why you're not but not that involved in points yourself, you don't travel as much, even though you work in the travel business, or you
no,
feel
I just have never been there's 2 camps. There's the cost camp and there's the points camp, and I'm in sort of the cost camp. So yes, as an Indian, I have to always be in the cost camp. So
though I know lots of Indians who are obsessed with their points as well. Fair enough. Rafat, I know you need to jump, so if you do, we'll say goodbye. Leave us with some optimistic words if you can, and also a reminder how to find you, how to find your team, what to look for in the days ahead.
Yeah, so I do want to give a shout out to my team. They're listening in and they're doing an incredible job. This is people from around the world, and I'm just lucky to have such an incredible team at this stage. And so I'm at Rafat on Skift. On Twitter. And
at
Facebook.
Rafat, at Rafat. Yep.
Yeah, at Rafat is easy. So I think that's probably. I do have different personalities on Twitter versus LinkedIn versus Facebook. I'm sure all of you have different personalities. I tweeted, the last tweet probably was what would it feel like when that great day comes that we'll all be able to travel again, and what would the world feel like then? So wouldn't that be a beautiful thought?
It really would, and that's a good note to end on. Everyone, please follow him at Rafat, follow at Skift. Before you go, tell people who may be hearing about it for the first time the origin of the name and how you got to that. Because your previous company, paidcontent.org, was very clear. So talk about that.
Yeah, so Skift in Norwegian, randomly, means transformation and change. And so, we are documenting. I bought this domain name 10 years ago when I first sold my first company. And now basically Skift for the travel industry means the business of travel.
Right. Very, very cool. Excellent. Thank you, Rafat. We'll let you go. Good luck. Good luck to your team. We're following your work very closely, and I know you've got a lot of new people paying attention as well. We'll see you soon. And there's a funny comment from Bill Swersey who says, at Sree, at Rafat, at Gregory, 3 folks with first name Twitter handles. Bye, Rafat. See you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right, Greg, talk a little bit about your own journey in these last few months. You were getting ready for South by. I know Social Media Weekend is big, but South by was your big event of this part of the marketing season, business season, right?
That's right. Yeah, we always do a big dinner for our customers and partners that we work with at South by. And it was one of these day-by-day things of figuring out what do we do. Every day South by was announcing they were on, and every day there was more and more guidance that pointed to the fact that events would start getting canceled. And, frankly, I don't blame South by for waiting till the last minute to make the call, because it was a devastating business loss to them. And very sad to read that they had to lay off 25% of their staff as a result, because when you have an event business, all your revenue comes in one day or 1 week, whatever the length of the event is. So, we just took it day by day, and ultimately we were kind of debating internally, should we still go, should we not? And we figured, well, we'll wait to see if it's even a decision we have to make. And it turned out not to be. They canceled it before we had to make a call ourselves.
How much money did you lose? Not, in just terms of broad strokes. Was it for certain kinds of folks were able to give you money back and others weren't, or how did it work?
Yeah, it was tricky. We do our dinner every year at Lambert's, which is one of the best barbecue places in downtown Austin. And I hope I don't cause too much controversy with that statement, because I know people are very particular about their.
You're going to get the Salt Lick people, the Rudy's people, all mad.
Exactly. So we'd already paid half of it, and then they gave us the option to either get the other half. Actually, I don't remember if the other half we paid and they offered to refund it, or they offered to not have us pay it. But then they suggested that we pay it and that they donate the food to a local food bank. So we ended up doing that option. And then in terms of other expenses, there was a cascade of figuring out where we could get refunds from flights and hotels and all that.
Sure. Just a second. Just want to show you what my daughter made. Beautiful lunch. They're doing remote school today. They have to she has to run back in for video class. They're all using Zoom and trying to learn. And this is junior year of high school. This is not the way I would want them to spend it. But that's the moment. How is your team holding up?
Yeah, my the team's doing very well. So as I described earlier, we've always been really at the forefront of remote work, where half our team's distributed all over the world, from Argentina to Italy to India to Canada to Central Jersey. And then we also have this office in Soho that we were excited to host you guys at. Had an opt-in for the executive order, and of course, your judgment call before that. But even for our team in person, we've always been really big on this idea that anyone can work from home whenever they want. And so many companies say they're remote work friendly, but then you find out you can work from home, but one Friday a month, and you need to get approval from your manager 2 weeks before that. Whereas our system's always been, hey, you wake up, you decide if you want to come in. We have some of our best team members come in once a week or once every other week. We have other people who'd always preferred to come in every day. So for the most part, when we decided to formally close the office, it was pretty easy. There was no planning needed. It was just, hey guys, don't come in, because you all already have your laptops at home. Every meeting already had a Zoom link attached to it. And we were totally remote setup. So as a company, it was all set. I do have to admit, personally, I just like coming into the office, and there were a good number of us where it's just our habit, and some people just like being around other people. So, and for me, even when I'm traveling, or if I weren't going to go to the office, I like going to a coffee shop. I like having other people around. So it's taken me some adjustment. But I found just getting on more video calls, and even more casual ones, or video calls outside of the normal course of business, and frankly, like we're doing right now, has been really helpful.
Thank you. Liz, tell us about how you're seeing the travel industry and the events business kind of handling this. How do you think, were they ready for this kind of shock, or do you think that they're now improving as they're going forward? And I've seen some just postponed for 2 months. Was that the smart thing to do? My own social media weekend, we decided not to cancel, not to postpone. We decided to do an online event because, in part, we wanted to show people how an online event could look in this day and age, what we could do, the cool stuff. So that's why we did that. So we'll never know what's the right call. So I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, there's that word I keep hearing that I keep saying, if I hear it one more time, I'm going to, lose my mind. Unprecedented. We are in unprecedented times. So no, I don't think that the travel industry or the events industry was prepared for this. However, I think we're a very strong industry, very resilient and very innovative. And I think we are going to be just fine after we get through it all. And unfortunately, we won't be able to carry all the businesses through with us to the other side. But events, I think, are making the best calls that they can. So we've seen everything from full cancellations to moving things online, short-term rescheduling, long-term rescheduling. I think everyone is trying to be as flexible as possible. I know that a lot of the venues and vendors are trying to use whatever money has been paid and kind of move that towards future business. And to your question about things that were moved a month or two in the future, I think that was the best call at the time. I think now that we're looking at it, those are probably going to get shifted again, either virtual or further in the future. And I think that uncertainty, there was like the uncertainty last week of, oh my gosh, everything is being canceled, everything has to be canceled. And now there's this extra added uncertainty of how long that's going to have to last. And I think that makes people feel really uncomfortable. But I have no concerns about the events industry in particular. People like to be with other people. And as soon as we can get out of our homes, we'll go right back to being with other people. And events have always been that gathering place in every industry and for every topic. And I love to see it happening on Zoom. Zoom has probably never been so busy, but we're seeing, events being moved to virtual. We're seeing people we did on Monday a happy hour for the industry. I've seen people doing all kinds of working sessions. There is a lot of innovation happening in this time. And I think it's very exciting, although yes, it's incredibly stressful as well.
Right. I'm going to bring in my colleague, Neil Parekh, who has been kind of our champion on putting a lot of the things we do online in a kind of bigger scale. And he's been working with many of the folks who are involved in Social Media Weekend. So I'm just going to bring him on here. Hi, Neil.
Hi, everyone.
Neil Parekh is involved very deeply in the internal comms world of United Way, the world's largest charity. But in his spare time, he helps me with a lot of my online shenanigans, including our Social Media Weekend, and more importantly, even from the work he does, the New York Times Read Along, which is now in its 5th year. It's hard to believe. We read the print New York Times on Sundays, 8:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. So first, Neil, tell us who we have coming up and what our plan is for Sunday, and then we'll talk about the weekend, and then we'll get some feedback from these experts here.
Absolutely. So we're really excited about this week's Sunday New York Times Read Along, as we are every week. Our guest is actually a former New York Times labor reporter, Stephen Greenhouse, and author of a new book about American labor. It's going to be a great follow-up to Social Media Weekend. We're going to be talking about, of course, his book, his 31-year career at the New York Times, but more topically, the impact of the novel coronavirus, COVID-19, on workers and their families. As we know, this is impacting everybody, but there are a number of people. I'm blessed. I work with United Way worldwide for my day job. We're working twice as hard right now because we're helping communities respond to the crisis. But they're working families, working people who sometimes they're either not getting paid, they can't go to work. Everyone in the gig economy, for example. So we'll definitely be focusing on that, beaten down, worked up, the past, present, and future of American labor, as Sree is showing on his screen share. And I'm thrilled to announce, if I can share breaking news, Sree. Thank you, Greg, for Muck Rack coming on as a sponsor of the New York Times Read Along. We're thrilled to have you on board and looking forward to doing some great things. We are, in our 5th year of the New York Times Read Along. I've been producing the show for Sree for about 2 years now, and we have now I'm the executive producer, and we have a team of other producers. One of the things that we like to do is to not just put on a good show, but also teach people how to do live streaming and how to use the tools that we use. So the key to that, we stream to Facebook and LinkedIn at the same time. We have a producer in Facebook engaging with the audience and sharing links and context. We have a producer in LinkedIn engaging with the audience as well. Sree, when he hosts, he's the one conducting the interview, and I'm on the backside managing StreamYard, putting comments on the screen, changing the lower thirds, doing screen share, etc. So we're excited to have sponsors such as Muck Rack and a few other folks as well. It's taken the show to whole new levels over the last few years, and we often have, almost every week we have a different guest. We have authors, we have reporters, we have various experts. So it's a great event. So glad to have you with us, Greg. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Greg, and thanks.
Our pleasure. Yeah, we're really excited to support.
Yeah, it was part of our, the fact that we were working together. You're also sponsoring Social Media Weekend, so we're going to be working together there and all of that. So we're going to continue to do it, but just more virtual than not. In terms of, I want to go to Liz for a question about how can if you're an event planner watching right now, or you're tuning in right now, you're not a professional event planner, but you're at a nonprofit or one of these, you're just a do-gooder for your church or elsewhere, and you've got an event coming up. What can you do? What words of wisdom can you give them right now? Because I think the professional travel planners have access to people like you. There's the things they read online and everything. But if I run a small gala, I run a small, annual fundraiser, I'm kind of lost.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are making those hard decisions right now. So I would say, one piece of advice is everyone has access to me and other professional planners. So reach out to professional event planners and get their feedback, ask opinions. I'm more than happy to kind of do one-on-one, kind of help you field questions and figure things out. One thing I think people really need to focus on right now is just communication. So whether you've decided that you're going to cancel your event or you're going to move it or whatever, once you've made those hard decisions, communication is key to all of your stakeholders. And that's especially hard right now when everyone is communicating. And I don't necessarily mean send an email that says, here's our plan in response to COVID. We care about you and your people, and all those emails that we've all gotten 1,000 of. But really reactive communication. Social media is, of course, a great platform. Direct emailing, I think that's part of it. And then, to be honest, I don't know if there's a right and wrong decision at this point. So when you're making those decisions, you have to do what's best for you and your organization. Again, you can get feedback from as many people as possible, but at the end of the day, you just kind of need to make what you think is the best decision, commit to it, communicate it, and roll with the punches if things have to change again.
I think way to think about this, because we were in this kind of similar dilemma. Do we just postpone, which was the easiest thing, or just say, as they did at South by, we will for the future, for a future social media weekend. But then that means, as a planner, we're on the hook to have another social media weekend. Of course we will, but you don't want that. And that's where both of you have been in business longer than me, both Liz and Greg. What do you do about those kind of obligations that are caused by this, right? You've taken revenue from a customer, a client, and you can't deliver necessarily. How do you negotiate that? And any other kind of business-oriented tips about making money, keeping money, saving your money? We'll go to Greg first and then Liz.
Yeah, I think first of all, we're in the same boat as you, Sree, with the Shorty Awards that we also put on, where they're coming up on May 3rd. And we made the call to make them digital only. And it'll probably be, at first we were thinking maybe we could do a studio and no audience a couple of weeks ago. We were joking around this week that that concept seems low. So last week, where just a week ago, it seemed like, you could do a studio with 10 people, you just can't do a show. And now the idea of doing a 10-person studio seems unfathomable. So the Shorty Awards will probably look more like what we're doing right now, with pulling people in from wherever they are, having acceptance speeches from their living room. We're getting creative, and we're going to make it the best show we can, and we're kind of taking it as a call to be creative. In terms of your question, advice for other event organizers, it of course comes down to the nature of your event a lot. So the Shorty Awards, we've always usually we have about 800 people in attendance, which fills up the PlayStation Theater in Times Square, as we were planning on doing this year. And then we have hundreds of thousands and often millions watching online.
Yeah.
So it's always been the majority of our audience was online. So we feel like we can still deliver, the value of an award show without having an in-person event. Versus if you're running a conference, that might be very different. So for South by, the nature of South by, the magic is who you run into on the streets of Boston, the parties. That's hard to recreate online. But I think it is, a good challenge for event organizers. And, I have all the empathy in the world for people who are in, I know there are many people who are in more challenging spots than us with the nature of their event. But I think it is a chance to kind of rethink what you do and think, if you were going to have breakout sessions in person, can you set up 10-person Zoom groups? And if you were going to have a keynote, can that still happen online through video? So I think there are opportunities to rethink how these events work. And if there's any way to do it, I encourage people to do it, because the flip side is everyone's stuck at home with nothing to do. You have less competition for attention than ever in history or modern history.
Let's talk a little bit about the Shorty Awards are awards, you would call them the Oscars of social media, but your other big business is Muck Rack, and you and I are working together on getting the word out about Muck Rack, and I'm advising you on it. So talk a little bit about that, please.
Sure. So it's a platform both for journalists. They can set up free portfolios on there that automatically update with their latest work. And we have a lot of other free resources for journalists, including a way to monitor trends in the news. And then we have a whole suite of software for PR teams at companies that they can use to find the right journalist, monitor, have a CRM to track all their communications, monitor the news, and build reports. So it's been a really busy week for us supporting both our customers who are having all kinds of crises every week, as everybody is.
That's the word somebody used. Yeah. And this is Greg. Just the last point on this. How do you, as somebody who charges money for keeping the lights on for yourself, how do you decide when to kind of ease the brakes a little, or press the brakes a little bit, not push forward, not market as much, not push as much, be kind to your customers, but your customers are continuing to charge their customers. Like, how do you figure that out? Because you and I've had long walks just about these questions, because I'm terrible at the business side of my business, and you're fantastic at both the business and the business side of the business.
I don't think that's a fair characterization. You've done an amazing job building up this community. But yeah, in terms of how we're handling it, it's just a lot of judgment calls. And so the way we do it is to kind of try to stay human about it and not just come up with some blanket policy and apply it without thought. So we're big into transparency, which is one of our core values. Like, everyone can see everything going on in the company in Slack. So whenever one of these issues comes up that someone has an issue paying because of disruption to their business, goes in the public Slack channel, and we talk about how to handle it. And every situation, I mean, we're so new into this, but like every situation's different. How big's the company? How directly affected are they? What exactly is their challenge? And we just try to work with them all.
Sure. Liz, tell people how they can work with you, because you have a consulting business right now. Tell them about that.
Well, yeah, so I kind of transitioned my business a few years ago because I enjoy and love event planning, but I've learned that the industry, it's a lot. And so a lot of people.
I'm just going to tell people that you had an event for event planners. Whenever I would speak at it, you were kind enough to have me on more than once. I would tell them I'm giving a keynote at your event, which is an event for event planners. That kind of blew their minds.
Yeah, I think I kind of accidentally fell into that. I'm one of those people. It's like, if I feel like there's something that needs to exist and I wish there was something, I just create it. And so I wish there was something around technology for the events industry, and I created Techsy Talk Live, and you were gracious enough to speak at it a few times. We ran it for 10 events before deciding, okay, everyone else is talking about technology now. It's not something that needs to be talked about. And when I transitioned, I I learned a lot through that experience because I learned that I was hosting my own event. And yes, a lot of people said it was very dumb because I was educating my competitors. I really saw it as a smart thing to do because it was making our industry a lot better. And what I learned is that I was able to make revenue from that wasn't so dependent on getting a client and hustling and selling them on how great I was. I'm not a salesperson at all, so I'm not very good at that. And so where I transitioned my business is to help other people in the events industry do what I'm doing now, which is I take a lot less events at a lot higher dollar amount, a lot better engagement, long-term relationships. And then I've been able to make my revenue and what I need to live through a lot of other sources. So things like hosting my own conferences. So I still kind of do my own events and things like that. Consulting, paid speaking. I'm a total introvert. So if you told me years ago I'd be making any money from paid speaking, I would have, thrown you out of the room. But really helping event planners to think outside the box, because unfortunately a lot of planners are in this position where if they're canceling anything right now and they're losing $1, they can't afford to give it back and they can't afford to continue living. And so that's a very uncomfortable place that a lot of people are in right now in a lot of industries. It's not only events. So I'm helping people think through my consulting, helping people think outside the box in terms of, you have a core service offering, but for service-based businesses, what else could you be doing to bring in revenue that will help you ride these waves? And so, I had the call with my Ignite group this morning, and actually they're feeling pretty good because they don't necessarily rely on one sole source of income. So that's one way that I like to help people in the events industry. But, it does apply to a wider audience as well. It's all about thinking outside the box. And in times like this, being creative. I actually launched my business during the 2008 recession, which I think, again, most people would say it was ridiculous, but here we are.
Yeah. And Neil, please jump in with if you have any questions. One of the things I want to just bounce off our speakers is that I've been saying to people that both of you, both Liz and Greg, have taken things that were not real yet and willed them into existence, a little bit the way Liz was saying it. I remember we met, Liz, when you were working at Columbia, yet another employee at a giant university on the staff, and you came out to help us at the very first social media weekend, and you made these beautiful badges that said "Life is Tweet," and people could write their names on it. And I just remember you giving us all this advice, and this was not even your thing yet, and you made it your thing, not because of social media weekend, but just you could see that people needed what you could offer. Greg, I want him to tell in a minute the story of how the Shorty Awards came about and how it wasn't a thing, and then suddenly it's a thing where huge Hollywood stars are involved, and that all happened so fast. So my point is that these 2 weeks, 2 months, 6 months that we may have in front of us of great pain and turbulence, can we pick one or two things that we've always wanted to will into the world, whether it's our blog, our novel, our digital project, a podcast, etc. All the tools are so much easier. You heard that Rafat started a online digital business fully remote without Skype. Like, how you can't even imagine in those days how he did that. So what can we do? So I urge all of you, if you have a idea that you want to will into existence, you can. This is almost a better time than ever. You have less commuting time. You maybe have less hours that you're picking up to do online. Whatever it is, people are more forgiving than ever before. And so I think a lot of people will want to help you, including me, Liz, Greg, Neil, all of us, I think, as an online community will want to help you. We're much more forgiving of mistakes and your fumbling first steps. Just look at this show. Call it the show was an insult 8 days ago. It was just an idea to just have a casual conversation. And I've had my first sponsorship inquiries already and even bigger things than that. So it just shows you this is the right time to do it. And now I want Greg to tell the Shorty Award story.
Yeah, and Liz, I love your story. We also started in 2008, and I think there's something to it in that when in these times of kind of financial change and challenge, if you're an entrepreneur out there and you've got nothing to lose, it's the perfect time to get started. And maybe it blew up other prospects. So now refocus your time, even if you'd have preferred not to. But anyhow, so we started in 2008. I got on Twitter really early, obviously, since I grabbed at Gregory before anyone else. And I saw there was like all this good stuff happening on Twitter, but no way to know who you should follow. So I thought we could crowdsource that by letting people vote with the tweet, which no one had ever done before. Now it's very common. You vote anywhere. Please share this on Twitter, Facebook, et cetera, et cetera.
By the way, the U.S. elections might end up that way.
Soon enough, right? It's especially if we can't get to the polls, then we'll have to vote by tweet. But we saw that, hey, we could crowdsource it by letting people vote with the tweet. And we thought, how do we get people to want to vote with the tweet? We'll call it an award. So $8 later, which was our total branding budget, we had shortyawards.com because no one else had grabbed it yet. That's about what it cost to buy a domain on GoDaddy at the time. And we launched it. We built the website in 2 weekends. And within the first 24 hours of the Shorty Awards being live, it became the top trending term on Twitter. And at first it was awesome. And we quickly got written up in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, BBC, and then had this kind of, moment of realization that we'd actually have to put on an award show, which we didn't think there'd be that many people interested. So dropped everything. And we announced the first Shorty Awards would be 2 months after we launched the website, and because we didn't know how long the Twitter fad would last. And spent the next 2 months of my life. It's the most intense 2 months of my life figuring out how to organize an award show. I came from a tech background, not a event background, so had absolutely no idea what I was doing. And I would never committed to launching an award show in 2 months had I known what I was doing, but didn't know any better and just scrambled. And back to the time, it was a crazy economy, obviously totally different challenge than the one that we have now. But when you're trying to create something out of nothing, you have no historics to measure against. You have no, set expense base to work on. So, I think in these times of change, that the underdogs, the people with no resources, are the ones with the big advantage because they're also the ones who don't have to spend all their time thinking about protecting it, protecting revenue streams, dealing with their payroll. They're free. They can innovate without any chains of how things were done before the new challenge.
So it's the top of the hour, and I want to make sure that our guests get back to their lives. I know they're very busy. Neil and I are going to stay for a couple of minutes, just talk a little bit about Social Media Weekend, talk a little bit about this whole technology called StreamYard and how we're making it work, and how I'm live on 5 platforms at the exact same time. And I'm doing this all by myself. Normally Neil is helping. I really wanted to test drive everything. I'm putting the banners, putting the website on, all of that I'm doing in real time. So I can just go in here. It's like having a whole studio. And there I wanted to put the logo up, and there it is. I want to take it off. I want to show you Nick Kristoff is speaking tomorrow, he's going to be awesome. Or Andy Rifkin spoke yesterday. He was great, right? So you can do all these things really easily on this platform. You can bring in comments. Here is Rose Horowitz saying, now's the time to try idea and projects. You have nothing to lose, Gregory. So she posted that on Facebook and we brought it in. So I'm going to explain that and talk about it a little bit, riff a little bit with Neil. So I want to just give both Liz and Greg a chance to leave us with something optimistic in this moment about any part of what we're going through. And then we'll say goodbye to them and then let them carry on with their day. So Liz, over to you first. I want to say thank you for being who you are, all the good you do in the world and how many people you have helped. And I asked you last night and you immediately said yes, and here we are. I willed you into our show and you came around, and thank you to you and Craig for all you do.
Well, thank you for all that you do, and hosting these conversations is just one small piece of all that you contribute to the social world, especially. So thank you for that. I am an optimist by nature, so I think this is a great time to rely on the people all around you, even as industries are struggling, businesses are struggling. I'm really impressed by everything I'm seeing, especially on the internet, of people coming together, working together, asking for help, offering help, whether it's a business related thing or a personal related thing. I think it's like we're being forced to be with our family and our close friends, forced to support people, and we're given a little window of time to do something that's unique, maybe to launch a new project or to start something new. Use this time very wisely and support everyone around you. And I think we'll get through this, and hopefully we'll be able to look back and see how this time was so pivotal in helping us to be a more united nation. Our industries will be stronger. New businesses will pop up. And I think, yes, there will be some hard things we have to learn through this, but I do believe we're going to come through stronger.
Wow, thank you. I feel already. I really appreciate you, Liz. Follow her at Liz King Events. Tweet at her, follow her, find her on LinkedIn, and just wish you the very best. And please keep in touch. And I know we'll see you on Parts of Social Media Weekend tomorrow. So we're very grateful. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
And Greg, over to you. Thank you for everything. And by the way, one of the things I've learned is one of the things you can do on these Zoom calls, you're sitting for hours, is very subtly do some promotional work. You have to be very subtle. No one knows what's happening. And you bring out I was in a meeting where somebody brought Go Vegan. It was like a Go Vegan mug was just showing up on occasion. You could see she was hiding her face, and people started laughing because you need those meetings to break up a little bit, right? So you can do a little subtle marketing right there. That's the Muck Rack logo. I don't know why it's an octopus. It's because you're doing so many things with Muck Rack, I guess. And
right.
Here's the other mug. So, yeah, over to you, Greg. Tell us something optimistic. Thank you for all you do. Good luck with the Shorty Awards in May. I know we'll be talking about that a lot before then. I still have some judging to do, so I got to get to it. You extended the deadline. I also want you to just to say thank you for supporting journalists and journalism. And you showed them a whole set of tools they didn't even know they needed through Muck Rack and through the Shorty Awards. You helped bring millions of people together. So I'm very grateful to you and your partner in crime at Muck Rack and Shorty Awards, Lee Semmel. Please say hi to him and Mike and the entire team for me.
I'll pass it on. Yeah. And I guess, thanks so much for having me. And just to close it out, I think for anyone out there who's, I know there are a lot of people out there in a tough spot where they have an event coming up, they have financial commitments on the line, or just a business model that's now challenged. And I think it's just important to remember that, ultimately, if you look at human history, there's always crises. It's unpredictable what exactly they'll be, but it's predictable that they happen every decade, every couple of decades. And ultimately, I think, we're all measured on what we do in times of crisis and change, not on what we do when things are going well. So I think if we all stay creative and open to opportunity and try to think through new ways to do things, this is our real chance to kind of show our mettle as leaders and figure out, how we all get through this and make things better together.
Wow, that's very, very, very deep, Greg. I appreciate that very much. I appreciate you. I know you'll be busy on Saturday, but I hope you'll pop in a couple of times into Social Media Weekend, see what we're up to, and making sure we're promoting you enough for the sponsorship support you've given us. And you've promised, you and Mike, that we'll do a big blowout event at Muck Rack headquarters in New York and online whenever it's feasible. We don't know if that's 2 months, 6 months, but we're on for a party, right?
That's right. And I'm sure, and people are going to party so much harder when it's their first party in weeks or however long it takes than they would normally. So it's going to be a much wilder party than normal.
Then that's dangerous because some of those Muck Rack parties are things that maybe we shouldn't try to amp them up anymore. But if you're saying they're going to amp up, then we're all in trouble, but good trouble. Thanks very much, Greg. We'll let you go and have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow at Social Media Weekend.
Great. Thanks for having me, and thanks for doing this. This has been a lot of great way to make it.
And we're here every day, just so you know, we're here every day trying to tell the story of what's happening in the journalism, media, and other worlds right now. And this is just so that also other people see. These are some of the stories we have done. We've done Life in Europe by talking to people on the ground in Europe live. We've talked about tech tips. We've had doctors on. We've had climatologists and experts, people giving out help. We even had a group of folks expert in things like reverse psychology, so that one way to get to people who are not listening to all this advice is maybe some reverse psychology. So my plan is to do this every day. And even Neil Parekh, who, as I said, supports me in all my shenanigans, was like, every day, even Saturday during social media weekend, I said, yeah, at night I will do it. My point is that this is for me, even if there is no audience, but I'm very grateful that there are thousands of people who are joining us and helping. So thank you. Thanks, Greg. Goodbye.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye. And over to you, Neil. What do we need to talk about? We also have to get back to our own work. And Steve Taylor says, thanks for the Muck Rack sponsorship, which is great.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Steve is one of our producers on the New York Times Read Along, along with Paula Kiger and Julia Weeks, who occasionally fills in as well. And you're showing a tweet from Spin It Social, our friend Stefan Kaplan, who's also going to be start using StreamYard. So thank you for your support, Stefan. And as Alicia mentioned, that she's signed up for StreamYard. I wanted to make sure that folks know that I'm more than happy to help folks if they have questions about StreamYard. Feel free to email me at neil@neilparekh.org or reach out on Twitter @neilparekh. One of the things, and Sree was able to show several of the features of this platform, being able to show comments, having a chyron on the bottom, showing websites. We can show video in the middle of the screen. One of the things I want to point out for our friends who are watching through your Facebook group, Sree, is that we actually have, I wanted to show that as a ticker instead, sorry. So I'll do that real quick. If you're watching from a Facebook group, you need to go to StreamYard.com/Facebook so that we can get permission, or StreamYard can get permission to show your face and name. So that's something to think about as well. But overall, it's easy to bring on guests. It's easy to live stream to multiple platforms. As Sree mentioned, we're on Facebook, Shree's personal Facebook group, Shree's Advanced Social Media group, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and on Twitter at the same time, which is just incredible. I think that it is just a great platform. Other things you can do with it, you don't have to go live. We've used it to have conversations with folks. I test it every week with our speakers to show them how to use it and to go back and forth. Or if you want to, you can actually just record a conversation. You don't even have to go live to do that. Just record and then download the conversation, and you can use it later. After you go live and after you are finished, you can download both a video file and a audio file. So if you want to set it up as a podcast, you can do it that way as well. So there are certainly, it's a very versatile platform. One of the things you can do is show different looks. So obviously I'm talking right now, so put myself on the screen. We can show a two-shot, if you will. And this works really well when you have 3 guests. I prefer a slightly set back look so that the comments and the banners are a little more clean. You can.
Can I ask Neil, why are our names not showing up when you sign in like they do in Zoom? Just our names. Why don't they show up even in this view? Is it because the banner is on?
One of the things, and I know that StreamYard was working on it. When you show a banner, it actually bumps off the name that we enter in the thing.
But it's not taking up any more room, so there shouldn't be a problem. But it is.
There shouldn't be, and I remember that they were working on bumping it up. So I'm going to have to look into the tech aspect of it. And my friend Steve, our friend Stephen Taylor, one of our producers, might remember what the feedback was. One of the things I'll mention about StreamYard, it has a great community on Facebook. They do a weekly town hall for all users, and they're really great at taking feedback and improving the feature set, taking recommendations. So this is something that has evolved. They've only been around for about a year and a half, I think, maybe. But already they're making a huge difference in the way that people can engage with audiences.
So here's an example of I'm replying to Rafat's Facebook, LinkedIn post. So I'm writing. So you can say, Sree's distracted. Let me just pull him off to show us how you just take me off the screen.
Exactly.
Right?
So that's what I did, and I can still keep your voice in the background.
Correct.
But I'm covering the screen, and this is part of one of the things that we can also do is when Sree and I are doing the show together. If it happens to be a technical glitch on one end, I can just take over the show and carry on. There are other things. If Sree needs to take care of something else, I can step in. And in fact, one time I was able to, I had a problem with my Wi-Fi at home. I restarted my computer and the broadcast was still going, which was really interesting. So it's one of those things that, you can work around with Facebook. If your phone overheated, for example, and you need to put it in the fridge in the middle of a Facebook.
As I've had to, yeah.
As this happened with Sree, you were done. Here's a good example. When Sree goes off camera, I'm gonna just put it in, just put myself on the screen because I hate to see an empty screen next to me. So let's see, what is Sree trying to show now?
Yeah. So I'm just going to show you my setup here. I have this light behind this.
Sure.
And now I'm standing, and so I'm kind of wondering for tomorrow. Is this a better look where I'm standing and we get kind of a wider shot, or should I be sitting over there, which is our typical New York Times read along, with a more controlled background, smaller, tighter, sort of the way you are? What do you think is better?
I prefer the tighter look myself, and I thought that you were going to be relegated to your son's bedroom, Sree. So get this idea out of your head that you're going to be in the living room.
Right.
Family is not going to be happy with you if you're
not for 8 hours on a Saturday.
Showing them in the background.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that we consider, right? That we have families that sometimes wander in by mistake, it's all good.
Yeah, we're rapidly losing everyone here, so let's say goodbye.
I have to get going as well.
So thank you, Neil, and thank you everyone for watching. This is my daily COVID-19 show. We talk to people around the world. We bring in guests. We're going to do this every single day. That's one of the things when you start something you're not supposed to say, because then you're stuck. But I'm saying it anyway because unless I get COVID-19, I'm going to continue to do this. And maybe even then, like you're lying in bed and you can be on the air. I don't know. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But just want to say thank you for watching. Everybody, I'm so grateful for your time, your attention. We'd love for you to join us tomorrow on Social Media Weekend. It's just one full day Saturday with amazing guests, starting with workshops by our friend Andrew Lee and Stefan Kaplan. We have Andrew Seaman doing a show from, he's at LinkedIn, is going to do a show from LinkedIn. Cheryl Wu Dunn and Nick Kristoff are going to be talking. Junte Delaney is going to talk about all aspects of personal and digital branding. So overall, it's going to be a fantastic show. And I'm very grateful to everybody who signed up, who had faith in us, giving us money, time, and attention tomorrow. And if I can help you in any way, please do reach out. And if you can't afford the tickets, I said this a couple of times yesterday, and I've had at least 5-6 people ask, and I'm will gladly give you a ticket in exchange for some volunteer work. And we just want you at this time of great difficulty and turbulent times, as I keep saying, we want to be of help and not the folks who are not helpful. So thank you very much, everybody.
I referenced it earlier, but I want to make sure people saw the link for our United Way site.
Yeah,
that we've set up to help people responding to the COVID-19 crisis. So thank you, Tim, for your kind words. And what we'll do is we'll close, Sree, with some better branding for what you were talking about.
Yeah, there you go.
Media weekend this weekend on Saturday, all online with some incredible speakers and sponsors.
Yeah.
So thank you, everyone, and Sree, thanks for these COVID-19 calls. It's really bringing people together.
Thank you. And now I'll just hit end broadcast, and it'll all be archived on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and on YouTube. And at YouTube, probably the easiest place to find it, youtube.com/Sreenet. Please hit subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you again. Bye.